he broke with Donald Trump after that walk across Lafayette Park. It was June 1st. There were protests over, George Floyd, and he realized he was being used.
Right. He and Mark Esper, the Secretary of Defense at the time, both realized they were being duped into participating in that highly politicized event. The military's role is not to be politicized, obviously. I think he had, like a lot of people, had his suspicions about Donald Trump's understanding of the Constitution. But after that, that was a break point. And he apologized the next week, if you recall. And that apology served to reset his relationship in a good way with the rest of the military, but it destroyed his relationship with Donald Trump. And then for the 6 months after that, he became kind of the focal point of a lot of efforts to make sure that, to put it colloquially, the country didn't run off the rails, right? During the election, during the post-election period when Donald Trump wouldn't leave office, said he won, he did a lot of things, General Milley, both domestically and internationally, to make sure that we didn't have reckless wars, for one thing. So it's a very interesting progression from Lafayette Square to Joe Biden's inauguration.
And that was the day where, before they walked across the square, he was also talking about invoking the Insurrection Act and using the U.S. military domestically against civilian protesters.
Well, Trump and his loyalists love the Insurrection Act, love the idea of the Insurrection Act. And this, of course, is when Trump said, why can't you just shoot them in the legs? He said that to Mark Milley. He said it to Mark Esper. And, these officials, senior officials in the government, are like, well, Mr. President, we don't shoot American citizens in the legs when we can avoid that. And, we don't want to use the Insurrection Act because these cities are not, in fact, all of them are not burning down. And so it was a constant tug of war between, and this is the strange part historically, it was a tug of war between the military leadership that wanted the civilian leadership. Remember, the military reports to the civilians. They wanted the civilian leadership to calm down and honor the Constitution.
Now, you write that until Milley, no chairman had been forced to confront the possibility that a president would try to foment or provoke a coup in order to illegally remain in office. In the American system, it is the voters, the courts, and Congress that are meant to serve as checks on a president's behavior, not the generals. So Milley, in fact, after January 6th, with other members of the national security team, got together and informally agreed that they would prevent any reckless national security agreements, even though the commander-in-chief is supposed to have unilateral ability to do that.
Well, to be fair, what they said was, they never disobeyed an order from Donald Trump, but they would try to work around it, or they would try to convince him that it was a bad idea. There was talk of trying to attack Iran. There were the famous phone calls to the Chinese military leadership saying, we're not going to war here. Like, don't believe whatever you're hearing, just in order to just calm the waters. Those became very controversial, but they were actually in the security interest of the United States, because we weren't going to war with China, and we didn't want the Chinese to think that we were attacking them. That would have been obviously devastating and led to an all-out confrontation.
Now, General Milley will not be there if there's another Trump term.
Right.
And in fact, General Brown will be, because the term goes for 4 years. Will the military still stand up to a future Donald Trump? So
that's the $64,000 question. I imagine that yes, because these senior officers know their role in the American system. They are trained to believe in civilian leadership. But the challenge is there's nothing in the system that prevents the people of the United States from electing someone who's not fit morally, mentally, intellectually for serving as president.
Or legally.
And this is the challenge for the American people and their Congress, right? We're in new territory because we haven't had a president like that one we had before Joe Biden was elected.
Well, in fact, there's one more quote to you. He said, if the president alone decides to launch nuclear weapons, but he doesn't launch them alone. And so Milley's saying that he can't do that on his own because there is a chain of command. There's a double key system.
There is a chain of command, but let's not kid ourselves. The president is a nuclear monarch. The president unilaterally decides, and it's very, very hard. This is all theory, but it's very, very hard for a Secretary of Defense or senior military leadership to tell the president no. and it might be illegal to tell the president no. So this is why everything else pales in comparison to who we choose to be the person in charge of our nuclear arsenal.
You know, Jeff, of almost 300 military officers who've not been confirmed with huge impacts down the line. It's a domino. And now we just have the Secretary of the Army just confirmed this morning. But it's one by one, and that's going to take forever. Right.
It's really interesting because people talk about General Milley politicizing the military, but Senator Tuberville is doing something no one has ever done before. These generals and admirals and colonels who are up for promotion. They're not making the abortion policies or the reproductive rights policies in the Defense Department. These are the war fighters. And Tommy Tuberville is politicizing the officer corps by holding up these nominations.